welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is, what's today? Thursday, April 25th. We are here live. We only have an hour this morning, so jump in quickly. Phone lines are open. You can hit that call now button on your app. We did switch phone systems again since yesterday. We had a drop right at the end, so I thought we'd switch back. If you haven't restarted your app in a while, you might have to restart your app, but the call now button should work. Hit that, jump in here and join us, or you can dial 855-950-3835. We are live on the video as well. So if you are in any of those video streams and you're on the chat, I will take questions in chat today as well. So give that a shot. 855-950-3835. Jump in and join us. It's going to go fast today. I'm here for an hour of free-for-all, and then I'll be followed by Mike and Kevin Beckett with Rolling Toe. If you have any questions about wheels, tires, alignment, that'll be coming up in the next hour. Right now, it is a free-for-all. Anything goes. So I've got a couple things, and then we'll get to the calls. Go ahead and line those up. A couple things we could talk about. You know, I didn't get a whole lot of tax questions this year. I just realized tax season's already here and gone. I didn't get a whole lot of questions. We could talk about taxes. We could talk about your numbers. Were you surprised by your numbers? If you, I know a lot of owner-operators do not do their numbers all year long the way they should be. Then when they get their tax return done, I'm wondering what you saw in those numbers. I'm watching the economy, and I don't know if we're ever going to get clarity. I don't know if we're ever going to get back to a pattern that makes any kind of sense. You know, I even think about that. We did a financial show. It was part of, I think it was part of Matt's one year during COVID when they didn't have the show. We kind of did some virtual stuff for Matt's. And I had a financial show. We had a bunch of people on that really understand numbers in trucking. Noel Perry was with us. I think Chuck Snow was on that show. Brent Hutto. And we had Todd Amon from ATBS. And Todd's pretty brilliant when it comes to business and numbers. He's been around trucking his whole life. He's third generation. Todd made a statement, and when he first made it during that show, I thought he was joking. And then I went and did some research on it, and he wasn't. And now I'm wondering if this is, it doesn't seem possible that this could be right. But Todd made the statement that the government had figured out how to just keep manipulating the money supply, and that we were not going to have any kind of significant recession anymore. And it sounded kind of insane. But it's almost what we're seeing right now. Seems like to me, we should be seeing more of a downturn in the overall economy. We're even talking about the fact that if this is a trucking recession, it wasn't really a full-blown recession, and there are already people talking about the fact that we should be out of the trucking recession, whether you believe we're having one or not, within the next couple of quarters. There are several analysts that are predicting that things will start to improve in trucking in the next couple of quarters. I still don't feel like we ever really saw the downturn. Certainly rates are down, and we've seen a lot of small trucking companies exit the market. At least they give up their authority, whether or not they go lease to somebody else, whether or not the owners end up driving for somebody as an employee. There really isn't any good tracking on that. But we do know that some have given up their authority, not as many as I thought, and I'm shocked by how many are still getting in. We're almost at a point where we're starting to maintain some sort of balance. And if that continues, then these rates will continue. we need to shift the balance. The supply and demand balance needs to shift still, and it doesn't really seem to be happening. So we're seeing this kind of, we've described it as bounce along the bottom kind of environment with rates right now. And we've talked about the fact that if you look at a chart, go back to prior to the pandemic and start tracking, doesn't matter where you go back, 2014, 2015, and you watch the steady climb, and then the pandemic hit and we had all the crazy years. It, shut down the economy. That certainly changed things. We went from people spending money on services and trips and vacations to spending money on stuff. And then we did have all the government money being interjected into the economy while people were buying stuff. And that really sent the freight rates through the roof. We had a lot of people get in because of high freight rates. That's what happens. We had a lot of new broker authority. We had a lot of new carrier authority. And then that put pressure on the rates. Rates have dropped. We think we've found the bottom. But like I said, we're not really clearing enough capacity out of the market yet. So the other factor that's making this a more challenging environment, like I said, we're at a rate level that really would not be that bad historically at all. It should be a fairly good year, except for the fact that costs are really high. Inflation is not only hurting consumers, but inflation is certainly hurting businesses. When everything you buy costs more, that becomes a challenge. And we know food and fuel are big. Fuel, obviously, is a really important part of our operation. Now, luckily, the fuel surcharge keeps us protected from high fuel prices. But when you look at food and fuel being high, one of the expenses of being out on the road is the fact you have to eat out a lot. And that really does increase your cost. That is, like I said, we just did an event where we had to buy a lot of food, and I was just absolutely shocked by the cost. And those costs continue to climb. All right, I am not sure what is going on with our phone system. We had some calls coming in. They disappeared, and now there is nothing on the board. That's really unusual. I'm wondering if the phone lines are working. If you haven't restarted your app today, you might want to restart your app so that call now button will work. Maybe people aren't awake yet. We did have a call, but they were actually waiting for MD alignment. So wake up, pick up the phone, and give me a call. I really don't have a lot today. Today was kind of a quiet news day. I got up late, too, so I really didn't have time to do a lot of research. I am back in reading mode over the last couple of weeks. Normally when I travel, I get more reading done. But this time during my travels, I just wasn't. During Matt's, I didn't do any reading whatsoever. During the TIA travel, I did get a little bit of reading done, but I am way, way behind again. So I am probably going to spend the next couple of days getting caught up on some reading. All right, it looks like the phones worked. I don't know if you guys were just sitting back waiting for me to impart wisdom or what was going on, but calls are starting to come in. I was a little worried there. Thought we were having a technology issue. Everything seems to be working fine. Let me check the live streams. Yes, live streams are working. I don't have any questions yet, but if you want to send a question on text, I'm going to attempt to monitor those, maybe answer some of those as well. The problem is sometimes I have to try to talk and type at the same time, and that doesn't work all that well. All right. What else did I have? I thought I had something else on my notes I wanted to talk about. Maybe not. It was mostly about the economy, how it just continues to confuse us. I have no idea where this economy is going. I would never have expected the stock market to be where it is today. Inflation continues to go up, and yet we seem to be having that slowing economy. So we'll keep an eye on that. Now the calls are piling up, so I better get to them. Let's go to Minnesota. Tom, welcome.
Yeah, hi, Kevin.
Were you guys just all sleeping this morning or what?
Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I said, was everybody sleeping this morning or what?
No, we were just trying to figure out what the hell you were talking about because you tucked yourself in like a circle, I think.
I'm not awake yet. That's probably pretty apparent and obvious this morning. I slept in. I didn't have time to get up. It's that time of year where
water on your face.
I'm moving from sitting in front of a screen reading like I do all winter to about every other day I'm getting outside and working, and it's really screwing with my sleep schedule.
No, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I have. That's most of my everyday like that. But Eamon was saying, that because we're the reserve currency, and that's the only thing to keep. If there was any other option, I think that we'd be in big trouble. But because we are the reserve currency, we can keep printing this money. But then it's causing the inflation, and people are saying that they're worried about deflation. Well, I'll take a little deflation right about now, but it never seems to happen. If we'll take the 6% inflation and turn it into 6% deflation, then we'll be in pretty good shape, right?
Yeah, well, you would think.
Right, but the chickens are going to come home to roost, and they're going to come home to roost here eventually. And I can't make heads or tails of the stock market either, and I don't think anybody else can. But whatever happens next, whenever this gets ugly, it's not going to get a little bit ugly. It's going to get a lot ugly.
That's what I keep worrying about. I'm reading again the analyst in trucking, and the analyst in trucking can't. I understand the problem they face. I think there are a lot of people expecting some sort of major event in the economy, but those are hard to predict. The numbers.
Black swans.
You're right. There's a good term, and a lot of people might not know what that means, but you're right. We are expecting some sort of black swan problem. When you look at the overall numbers, you just kind of say it's really hard to predict why we might go into a recession right now, but we should, or we need to, or something's got to change, but it doesn't feel like it ever changes. But I think there are a lot of people sitting back and saying, it's not a matter of whether we're going to have a slow recovery off the bottom. We're still expecting some sort of major issue.
I am, but I have been for the last 5 years.
Me too.
So, poor Noel Perry. I don't want to pound on Noel Perry, but that poor guy hadn't been right for a long, long time.
Well, nobody has, though. That's the thing. It's not just Noel.
Right, well,
I watched.
It's not just Noel, right?
I watched 4 economists talk about what was going to happen in trucking, and they all sounded like I just sounded. Nobody is clear about anything. Nobody has any really strong convictions or predictions. Everybody is kind of scratching their head saying, when are we going to get some clarity around this? And we just never seem to.
Right. Well, Peter Zeihan was very convincing, and he was he was solidified in his convictions, and I don't know, maybe he is 100% wrong, about never going back to cheaper money, that type of thing. I just don't know, but he's the only one that's convinced me. In the last,
I agree. And if that is the case, then I just think we're in for a lot more of what we already have, unless something big happens. So the black swan. The whole idea of Peter Zeihan, and he had me convinced. I mean, I talked about that book a lot.
Me too.
But if that happens, that will happen over the next decade. I mean, that will drive our economy and what happens over the next decade. There won't be any clear pattern like we've seen in the past. Everything will be different, but it won't happen fast. It's gonna drag out. And again, I'm almost wondering if we're in for what we experienced in the 70s and into the 80s. There's just no growth. Just everything kind of very stagnant and nothing really changing. That's kind of what this is starting to feel like again. And if that's the case, there are some people predicting that will be our next decade will just be very, very slow growth, if any growth.
Just stagnant. And the only short-term prediction that he made was that there's no way that Trump could be reelected. And that's only short-term. So I'm going to use that as the litmus test for the rest of what he said, because he was sure there was no way, just due to demographics and all that, all his research and whatnot. There's just no way. But so that's going to be his litmus test for me anyway.
Yeah, it's you look at what's going on in the country and you think, well, there's something, the election will kind of shake things up and break things loose, but there's no clear. I can't think of a more confusing time in politics. Like,
but you know what? I think that we have this country is we have lost it to the other side, or to the Democrats, to the neocons. I really think that something does need to change seriously. There's no way we're going to get this country back if Biden gets reelected. He's got 4 more years in a lame duck. We already lost the House and the Senate. You can call them Republicans if you want to, but look at Johnson just got there as Speaker, and nothing's going to get done until the border's secure, and except for another $100 billion. It's just not sustainable. It just can't be, and I don't understand what's going to happen. Neither does anybody else. But I just know that before too long we already are a surveillance state. But before too long, when they come for our guns, which is going to be quick, then it's really going to get ugly. That's all I got.
Those are the kind of topics we seem to be down to now. And I don't call them, black helicopter theories or conspiracy theories. All these things are very, very possible. And that almost feels like what everybody's kind of holding back on. What's this? What's the government up to? Because nothing about the government seems to make sense. Nothing about this election makes sense. Nothing about the candidates make much sense. So I still feel like that's what a lot of people are holding out on. What is the government going to pull that we don't see coming?
Well, he already said that if he gets reelected, he's going to make everybody that gets buys a gun or transfers a gun to be a FFA, federal firearms license, whatever it is, holder that you need now to have like a machine gun. They don't hardly give them out if you have anything in your record or whatnot. But just to transfer or give a gun to your son, if you want to give a gun to your son now, that's no problem. But that's going to become. He said that's going to become one of his major issues. So that's what I'm waiting for the shoe to drop on that.
Yeah.
So, I'm old enough where I don't have to worry about it too awful much, but everybody else, buckle up.
Yeah. No, I get it. All right, Tom. Thanks for the call.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay. Let me try that again. What just happened there? There we go. Let's go to Indiana. Jeff, welcome.
Yeah, just for clarity, I am not a truck driver, but I am a business owner. And when you were talking about your taxes, I pay quarterly taxes as a business owner.
Okay.
And I've never liked getting a refund because they're just using my money for free. I'd rather pay them at the end of in April. But this year, I paid, I don't know, when your accountant gives you the amount you're supposed to send in for your quarterly, do you have to send in that amount?
No. In fact, it's always shocking to me how many businesses, small businesses, don't even bother with their quarterlies at all. And what they don't realize is that if you don't pay them at all, the IRS doesn't really care. They don't send you nasty letters, but there is interest being calculated into that amount. So pay the quarterlies.
Because if you pay, you have to estimate like 90%. They give you a 10% leeway that when it comes to the end and there's no penalty.
Here's the rule. You can either pay 100% of the previous year's tax, which many times that's how accountants, a lot of the software just calculates it that way. When your tax preparer did this year's tax return, they took the total amount of tax that you paid, divided it by 4, and that's your estimates. And as long as you pay 100% of last year's tax, no matter how much you owe this year, you will never have a penalty. The other option is to pay 90% of the current year's tax, and then you won't get a penalty. So if you satisfy either one, you either paid 90% of the tax you ended up owing, then there's no penalty, or if you paid 100% of the previous year's tax, there's no penalties or interest.
All right. Well, the reason I was saying is our business had we had about 11% less in sales.
Sounds about right.
So I paid $5,300 in federal for third quarter estimate and fourth quarter estimate. So that's $10,600.
Okay.
I got a refund of $11,000 because sales were under for this year, but I was paying on last year. So
correct.
I really didn't have to make estimates 3 and 4, and I still would have got money back. But in June, you don't know what the rest of the year is going to do.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So now my estimates are only $3,300 instead of $5,300.
Right. So,
but if our business picks back up to where we were, then, and I don't mind, then I'm going to owe.
And this is where, as long as you pay that $3,300 every quarter, which is last year's total tax, then no matter how good this year is or how much more money you make, it doesn't matter. You'll never be penalized. But next April, you'll probably have to write them a big check. Now, that's if we have a good year, which is kind of the topic for today. Does it feel like this year is any better than last year? Certainly doesn't to us.
It's only the first quarter, so who the hell knows?
Yeah, we're in a weird cycle because we took a pretty big hit when we lost Sirius, and we were climbing back out of that hole. But as we were climbing out of that hole, now the economy has slowed down, so that's kind of confused things. So I still think overall we're doing better, but it's not paying off as much because the economy is slowing down. Do you know what I mean?
Right. No, yeah, I got you. I mean, we don't want to raise our prices for our products as much, but when the raw materials come in and they add up and it dips into your margins, and then you hold off and wait, then you don't raise them for 2 years, and then you raise them. Everybody goes, Jesus Christ, the economy's doing better. Well, I didn't raise it then. Now I am. I got to recoup at some point.
Yeah, we're dealing with that. We haven't raised prices. As a matter of fact, we released our first branded product yesterday. We're pretty excited about that. Let's Truck Mind Fuel. And we were actually able to buck the trend. So not only have companies been raising prices, but they've also been doing something called shrinkflation, where they keep the price of a product the same, but they give you less of the product. And they're very sneaky about it. Like they'll keep the container the same height, but it's not as wide. and you get less product,
Right.
but you don't really notice it, and then they don't raise the price, they just keep it the same. That we did the opposite. So we were, and I don't know why this was. Bulletproof had a 16-ounce bottle of Brain Octane, but for some reason, when you bought wholesale, you got 14-ounce bottles. So we have always sold a 14-ounce bottle of Brain Octane. Well, now we have Mind Fuel in a 16-ounce bottle at the same price. So we were able to buck the trend of shrinkflation. We kept the price the same, but made the container bigger.
Oh, that's interesting because, I know that Bulletproof, they have the 32s, and then I didn't know they were 14.
Yeah, I don't know why it wasn't 16 and 32, but it was 14. So,
Well, a half gallon of ice cream is what, 56 ounces now or something? I mean, I don't buy it, but I've heard people say that it's not even a half gallon anymore.
Right. Well, 2x4s aren't 2x4 anymore either, right?
Oh, yeah. If you ever try to repair a 100-year-old barn and you get so you go, what the hell is that? Is that a 3x4? No, that's a 2x4.
That's a real 2x4.
It's actually 2x4 inches.
Right.
And you hold up a new one next to it and go, my God.
Yeah.
No wonder those guys were hammering those nails by hand.
Yes, they were. Yeah, things have changed a little.
All right, so just wanted to make sure that with the estimated taxes and whatnot that it's like you said, you just don't know till the end. And I hate getting a big ass refund like that when for 4 months I could have used
Right.
the money, but I'll let the government use it for 4 months. That's I guess that's the price I have to pay.
There you go.
All right, keep it up. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for the call. All right, we've got some lines open. I've got 30 minutes left. We will turn this over to Rolling Toe at the top of the hour. If you want to jump in now, hit that call now button. If you're watching on the live streams, you don't have the app, you can just grab your phone and dial 855-950-3835. We're going to head off to California this time. Mike, welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Kevin. I had a question regarding depreciation. And is there a window of time before actually starting a business that I could buy equipment and still depreciate it, like a tractor?
You can buy equipment anytime, forever and ever, and you depreciate it. Maybe I'm not understanding the question right.
Well, so in my case, I have like 4 years before I can go out on my own, on authority and whatnot. But my utility is looking at divesting my tractor here in the next little while. I'm wondering if I know the equipment pretty well. I'm wondering if I could buy it from them, and then when I open my business, then depreciate it at that point in time, or do I have to do it right away?
I'm glad I asked. No, you don't have to. You don't ever have to depreciate something right away. You can buy any equipment you want, let it sit around, do nothing with it. Then it's called putting it into service. When you put it into service for the business itself is when we start the depreciation. Now, what can happen, and this is like a lot of things in taxes, nothing is ever all that black and white. So if we buy something today and we're going to put it into service this year, then the depreciable basis, that's what we call it, the basis, how much are we going to depreciate, is really simple. It's the price we paid for the asset. So if we buy a truck and trailer today, whatever we paid for them is the amount we depreciate. If we hold those, and the idea is that if you didn't put them into service in the business, you're holding them personally. If we hold them personally for, say, 2 years, which would be kind of odd, I don't know why you would do that, but if you did, technically the purchase price is not the depreciable basis anymore. You would transfer that asset from a personal use to a business use, and we would have to get fair market value, and that would become the basis. Does that make sense?
The new price for depreciation. Yeah, I gotcha.
So most of the time, most of the time, if we buy a tractor today, let's use a tractor, and we don't use it for 2 years and we go to depreciate it, it's going to be worth less than when we bought it. Significantly less usually. But then we had that weird time where prices went so high it could have been the opposite. But that was just an odd time.
Yeah, but my thought is, I mean, currently it's a day cab, and my plan for business would be I wouldn't need an OTR sleeper necessarily. The day cab would work just fine. That would be kind of more local, throughout Northern California.
I guess my question
is, and I know the tractor. I know the equipment.
Why are we buying it before we need it?
I just was thinking. Just a thought of mine was because I know the equipment, and I know how it's been maintained, and I'd probably be able to get it for a song.
So, well, a couple things here. One, how well do you know it? Did you work at this company? Did you drive some of these trucks, or do you just know the company and their maintenance?
This would be my personal assigned tractor that I've been driving for the last 12 years.
Got it.
So I do kind of, I'm familiar with it. I know it. I know how it's been maintained, or how it hasn't been maintained per se.
And I've talked about this in the past. I usually assign about a 10% premium to a truck like that. So I would be willing to pay 10% more, or I'd be willing to let this thing sit if I had to lose 10% of the value. That's kind of the value that I put on knowing the truck. So when you say that, well, let's talk specifically. Give me some details on this truck. What are the specs?
Okay. It is a 2012 Peterbilt 587. It has a Cummins 2012 X15. It is full emissions.
Transmission, rear ends.
Rear ends. I've been asking the garage. They don't know themselves what the rear end is on it, but it's a 13-speed manual.
What are you using this truck for currently? What's its duty cycle?
I'm not sure. It's a day use type tractor.
So
it goes in the valley, goes in the mountains, goes off road.
Off road? Why?
We do a lot of off road job sightings for material. So kind of on dirt roads, out in the fields.
So when you buy this truck, is it going to continue doing the same type of operation?
No, it would be on highway.
But short duration, short mileage, out and back?
Yeah, it would be maybe 100, 200 miles round trip.
Okay. And why, if we're going to buy the truck now, why don't we put it into service now?
Well, so I have 4 years before I retire.
Oh, so you're going to hold this thing for 4 years?
Well, they've been threatening to get rid of this tractor and divest it the last 5 years, and they haven't done it yet.
So what? And I want to change the way you're thinking. You are so tied to this particular truck for some reason. You've been thinking about this for 5 years. They've been threatening to get rid of it. Now you're in a panic that they're going to. Buying a piece of equipment, holding it for 4 years, the numbers will never work. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Even that 10% value I would put on knowing this truck does not come close. For one thing, you've got to license it and keep insurance on it for those 4 years too.
Okay, and it may be a year before I don't know when it's going to go away. So I'm just thinking. It doesn't
stop thinking about when. Stop thinking about when it goes away. What you should be thinking about is when you're going into business. That's what's in your control. What they do with this truck is not in your control. So you are building a whole plan around something that you don't control.
You start from scratch.
That's a bad idea. Everybody does. It's wonderful if we can buy a piece of equipment that we're familiar with. But 99% of us, when we buy equipment, we just buy equipment. Whether it's new or used, there's always a risk. But there's a huge risk in buying a piece of equipment and letting it sit there for 4 years. That's not even a risk. That's just a bad financial decision. It's not even risk. We know it's a bad financial decision. When we buy a piece of equipment, we do assume some risk But we can mitigate that risk by doing good inspections and knowing how to spec a truck and knowing how to negotiate and knowing to get a good price. But we buy it, we put it into service. There's no way I can make these numbers work. How much do they want for this truck, by the way? How much would you have to pay for it? How many miles are on it?
It's got 524,000 miles on it, and I don't even know what the price would be asking for it from them. I don't even know.
You've got to get a much, much better plan in place. You know that they've been thinking about getting rid of this truck for 5 years. You've been thinking about buying it. In fact, you're almost obsessed with buying it, and yet you told me you could get it for a song. How do you know that?
Well, I don't.
So you are making business decisions on faulty information, and you should stop that.
Okay.
Is any of this making sense?
Yes. So just at this point, simply just want to go in business, then consider looking at equipment, and then come what may at that point in time.
Yeah, but even the way you say that, come what may. Like this is how business works. Like I said, 99% of the time in business, we buy equipment that we don't know. That's not,
right.
It's not unusual. You are so focused in on the idea that you have to have this truck, you're not even considering all the reasons why that's just a bad idea. I mean, there's always a truck available, always. There's never a time where I've ever said to somebody, no, you're not going to be able to go into business right now because there are no trucks to buy. There's always a truck.
No, that's never going to happen. I mean, always availability.
What you are missing here is a plan.
Right.
So I'll take this a little further. You said you're going to use this truck mostly on highway. Where is that freight going to come from in your business plan?
It would come from the vendors that my utility uses to supply them.
So would you be getting, I'm just trying to understand the operation. Would you be getting freight direct from somebody, or are you going to be leasing this truck to somebody else?
It would be contracting through a brokerage that my utility uses to bring the freight from the vendors to the company.
So you are going to get your own authority and then work through brokers?
It would be I guess you'd call it a contract. It'd be a direct through that broker.
Are you going to lease your equipment to that broker? There's a difference.
It would not be leased, no.
Then you have to get your authority.
Right, that's the plan all along, is getting the authority.
And you know that this freight is available to you?
Yes.
And what does it pay currently?
Well, they haven't given me the numbers. I've talked to them, and they've said they want to get my authority, talk to them, and they'd bring me on to do this.
Well, wait a minute. You have to get your authority before they'll share any numbers with you?
But they said because it's too far away and numbers can change.
Well, and this is part of part of my point. You're spending an awful lot of time thinking about a business that's so far away you can't make any decisions. There's nothing wrong with working on it. About the farthest out we should be planning a small business like this is about a year. Anything more than that, okay. Just wait. You're just going to spend it. Now, what you could be doing is you could be spending an awful lot of time reading business books. I would not even recommend my CMC course right now. We're just too far away for me to be able to help you. That there's nothing wrong with getting prepared, but you are way too far ahead of the curve right now.
Too far of the game, okay.
Way too far. 12 months is when you can start working on this stuff. But in the meantime, be reading a lot of business books.
And learn.
Yeah, sit back and learn. Be reading a lot of business books. Listen to a lot of good business podcasts. I would be doing that. But as far as making plans and buying equipment, you are nowhere near that time. Let's go to North Carolina. Ronnie, welcome to the program.
Hey, Kevin. Thank you for having me in the program, man.
You're welcome. What can I help you with today?
I was calling you almost answered some of the questions with the last call right now, because I was thinking about the same thing, just to because the prices are so cheap right now for trucks, you know.
Yeah,
Oh, they're a good price. No,
I do understand that, but here's what I can tell you. Well, let's think about this. You've obviously been watching truck prices because you know where they are now, and that's good. You can remember just a couple years ago they were crazy high, right?
oh yeah.
And how long did it take them to get down to where they are now? Quite a while, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to jump up overnight. We're not going to miss anything here.
Okay.
That we will start to see a pattern long before it's ever going to matter. It's not like you're going to wake up one day and go, oh, my God, I should have bought that truck last week. Look, the price just doubled. That's not going to happen. We've got plenty of trucks. There's lots of inventory. The economy's pretty slow. We would know that truck prices are climbing, and you would have plenty of time to buy trucks at a good price. So, again, starting that first trucking business, buying that first truck, I don't think anybody ever needs more than a year to get ready. In fact, in my course, that's the longest timeline I ever give somebody. If you can't get ready for this in a year, then you probably shouldn't be in business. You know, there are some people, and I have a feeling the last guy I was talking to might be one of them, that they will overanalyze everything. Now, he's not just analyzing, he's ready to go pull the trigger and buy stuff. That's almost worse. But this idea of trying to put together a business plan for something that's going to happen 4 years from now. Imagine this. What if you would have been doing that in 2020? Because that was 4 years ago. How bad would your business plan be if you were trying to write a business plan in 2020 based on what's going to happen in 2024? It would have been a mess.
Yeah, no.
Nobody could have predicted what we've been through in the last 4 years.
Yeah, my situation was I've been driving for a while, and my father-in-law, we already had the authority. He's running with one truck right now already with the authority, getting the name over there. He's doing great, you know. We had a year with authority, no issues. Everything is going great, you know, in that way. But, of course, rates are come down a little bit, you know. And my idea was to buy, because I moved to North Carolina. I was in Oregon, and we moved to North Carolina with the reason to buy a cheaper house. That way I can use some of the equity from my house. And
good. No, that's a good idea. I like that kind of, I like that kind of business planning. I like entrepreneurs who are willing to move if it makes sense. I've moved my business several times when it makes sense. Yeah. Those are the kind of things you do for business. And if you've built equity in a house and there's someplace else you can move with the lower cost, those kind of plans are excellent.
Yeah, and that's what we did. So I had the money to buy the truck. I was not going to use all my money because I need a cash flow, you know, for anything that happened. You know, I was going to put maybe half of the truck and then finance the other half, so my payment was not that high. You know what I mean? Right.
No, that's not a bad plan either.
The rate. You know?
Right. So,
but my question is, like, I was gonna buy the truck, but with the interest rate right now so high for the house, I was waiting to refinance. You know, and the lady told me that I can't do that right now because I will have to be in 1099 for 2 years before I can refinance if I go with my business. You know. So that's what I was thinking to. That was I was thinking to buy the truck and have it in storage. But you answered my question when you talked to the other guy. Yeah,
it really doesn't make sense. I mean, and when I say we could start planning a business a year ahead of time, that doesn't mean buying any equipment. Even a year ahead of time is way too early to buy equipment. We should be buying equipment, honestly, within about a 30-day window of when we're going to put it in service. The one exception to that, maybe, I've helped people buy an older truck 6 months early, and they spend some time and cash flow during that 6 months working on that truck. That can sometimes work out. But other than that, I mean, you should be buying the equipment within about 30 days of when you're going to put it into service.
Okay. That's was my question, because I was like, oh man, those trucks are good right now, but I think because I had a good job, I get paid good.
So let's talk about that for a second, just so you know what you're getting yourself into. How much money do you make a year now?
Right now, I'm making between 70 to 75 a year, because I don't get a lot of hours.
Okay. So how much money have you been able to save making $75,000 a year?
Maybe like $5-6 grand a year,
Okay. So
right now,
that tells us a lot. What that tells us is you would have to make at least that much as a truck owner, as a company owner, just to stay where you are, to be able to maybe save $5,000 or $6,000 a year. And I will tell you, in today's market, as a new startup, that's not a slam dunk. That may be a struggle your first couple of years. You may not make 75.
Okay.
So it's something we have to look at, and those are the kind of things I help people with in my coaching program and the CMC. We would dig into those numbers and really create a business plan. But it's possible with today's rates and the expenses that in the first year, you might make 60, 65.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have to look at that. Okay. And that doesn't mean we wouldn't do it. Sometimes we do have to take a couple steps backwards, but we have to make sure you're financially able to do that.
Yeah, because I want for sure my family to be stable. I don't
Correct. Right.
Of course, I'm willing to take the risk.
Right.
But at the same time, I had to make sure we had enough to take care of everything we had.
Yeah, it's what we call a calculated risk. We know there's risk. Something could always go wrong. We're willing to take that risk. But if we do things right, here's what we expect to make. And in some years, it may not be enough.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
If I were you, I would
really
keep doing what you're doing. Keep working towards that plan. We've got some time. When it gets closer and before you start making big decisions, that's when we would sit down, really look at the rates, and really calculate what we think you're going to make in that first year.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah, because like I said, the authorities keep getting the name over there. My father-in-law is running out. He's great. He's doing a good job.
Good. Well, you know what's nice?
He's able to do it because he doesn't have kids. He's single, so it's easy for him.
Exactly. When you've got a family and you're thinking correctly, you can take some risk, but you have other people that depend on you. The good news is, though, we can see his numbers and we can see what he's doing. That would help us project what you would be able to make.
Okay. Sounds good. I will look into that course that you have.
All right. Sounds good. And you can always just keep calling here, and we'll keep going over that and working towards that plan for you. All right, let's get to Oklahoma. Paul, are you really calling about 2x4s?
Yeah, 2x4s, 100 by 50s. Yeah, howdy.
Yeah, hey there. What's 100 by 50?
That's a 4x2.
Oh,
100 millimeters.
100 millimeter. Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah. So when I was a young fella, before I even started in the real workforce, my brother-in-law worked at a timber yard / sawmill and drove the truck. So I would go down there, and I learned a lot about lumber and everything before I even left school. I was like 12 years old when I started going there. And that was actually my first driving job I got when I was 18.
Oh, nice.
So, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
If you're just building a fence or something, you only need a rough sawn piece of timber. So a 2x4 or a 4x2 as we call it in New Zealand, it might be 4.5 inches by 2.5 inches. But once you get into where you need more accuracy, like building a house or something of more consequence or inside work, it's going to be machine gauged, and that's when it gets smaller. So 100 by 50 is 4x2, but once you machine gauged it, it would go down to 94 by 47. millimeters, which would be 3/16 less than 4 inches, and
Well,
an eighth of an inch less than 2 inches.
my thought is, if you think
when
about
you get to building something, yeah.
if you think about how many 2x4s they produce, if you make them a little smaller, you save an awful lot of wood.
I invested in trees, cut them down. So, but I think they're gonna be cutting my trees down this year, quite possibly, because I got an email the other day about they're putting in the roading to get to that.
There you go.
Right there. So
good.
Yeah. So might work out good, but the age that I grew up, when I first went to school, we were still in feet and inches. And then the second year I was at school, it changed to metric. So I learned metric, and my father was a carpenter, so he did everything in feet and inches.
Yeah.
And then, but eventually he changed over to metric. He had a ruler, and it was millimeters, metric on one side and feet and inches on the other side.
Yeah.
So that first, working at the lumber yard, it depended on how old the customer was as to what measurements she got. Like the old guys would come in, and they'd say, I need 10 pieces of 4x2 that's 16 feet long.
Right.
And then the young guys would come in and they'd say, I need 10 pieces of 100 by 50 at 4.8 meters long. And then the guys that were the same age as me, they'd come in and they say, I need 10 pieces of 4x2 at 4.8 meters long.
Oh, boy.
So metric and imperial.
They'd mix it up.
The same thing.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I've talked about this before. When I was in elementary school, I don't remember what grade, we started to switch. We started to learn the metric system. And I wish we would have continued. Yeah. I don't know why we gave up on that here.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's a much better system.
You get near the Mexican border or the Canadian border up there in New York, and they go metric. It'll say 387 kilometers to Montreal or shit like that. But and then so Americans that don't know metric, they don't know how far it is.
Exactly.
It can't be that far.
It's way too much to think about. So, all right, I've got to grab one more call.
Metric is very easy.
It is easy, and I wish we would have switched. It makes so much more sense. Let's go to Missouri. Ilya, welcome.
Good morning, Kevin. How's it going?
Good. We're looking at an oil sample today?
Yep. So there's two on there. There's one from prior to buying this truck, and then this is the first one since I bought the truck, and I also did the modification, switched it to 10W30, and I think this has a little bit or just about 12,000 miles on the oil.
Excellent. Okay, so it's a little hard to tell a lot with just 12,000 miles. But everything we can tell is all good news. It's burning really clean. There's no wear metals to speak of. No fuel dilution. Silicon is low. This is just a really clean sample. Now, I'd like to see one with 25,000 miles on it, but I don't think it's going to change much. I think you've got a good engine here.
Okay, so you think even like with the low amounts on all that stuff, it's fine that this early into the oil?
Low amounts on like what? Is there something you're concerned about?
No, I just see like aluminum, copper, lead. There's like a little bit of all of that, but
you're always going to have a little bit. I mean, it's hard. You can test brand new oil and find some of that stuff in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so those numbers are really, really, really low, and there's nothing there to worry about.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, great. By the way, that Broker Carrier Summit this week, that event was awesome. You should definitely try the next one. There's a lot of speakers there that were like very much in line with the stuff that you talk about.
Good.
So it was like an interesting place to be.
A lot
of good brokers.
I met. I don't know how I didn't know Trey. I don't know how him and I didn't run up across each other at some point. I met him for the first time at TIA just a couple weeks ago, and I had kind of seen some of the ads for this summit, but I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to it. Him and I got talking. He wants to talk about. I guess they're going to do it again in October. Is that right?
Yeah, in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah, October's, I'd rather not travel till November, but I'm willing to talk to him about October and see what happens. Looks like a good conference.
Yeah, it was great. The brokers were happy with it. Even like they were even talking about in comparison to the TIA. Like they were saying, like if you're looking to actually have the conversations, like make some relationships and make some business happen, this is the place to do it. Like me with we're just over 100 days authority. Like I would say we probably got like 15 and 20 brokers that we could probably work with. I know it's not going to be all of them. So maybe out of those 15 to 20, I'm hoping 3 to 5 we actually end up working with pretty well.
Which is
a great place.
Yeah, which is perfect. What you gave yourself was an automatic sales funnel. You had 15 brokers to start working with, and like you said, the odds are you're probably going to end up with 3 or 4 or 5 of them, which is ideal. So I do like this, and I will say, we've tried for years to kind of get some more carriers to go to TIA, but I can understand why it doesn't really work. The TIA event is already huge, and trying for the TIA to try to add stuff to bring carriers in, that gets really complicated. You have to have a whole different education track. So it's kind of nice that we're seeing an event like this. We did it at our CMC. We brought some brokers in and had some interaction going on. We're going to bring back Broker Connect, the show. So this whole idea, this whole conference fits right with what we've been trying to do anyway.
Yeah, I was thinking about going to the TIA one. It was just like so near this one that I was like, okay, that one was like double the price, and it was a week. This one, it was like the focus of this one is interaction. So
this, I can tell you, for a carrier your size, this was a much better value. I love the TIA. It's a great event, but it is expensive, and it really is. All of the sessions and the education are geared towards brokers because that's who's there. If you can make it to that event as a carrier, I think it's worth it. And going through the sessions, learning more about the industry and how things work from the broker side is good. But I think you made the right choice. With these two being so close together, I think you went to the one that brings you more value as a carrier.
Yeah, it was like shorter but to the point.
Exactly.
And then,
right.
Yeah, and it was interesting, like, learning about the stuff, too. Like, my issue is this whole freight fraud thing kind of getting in the way. So I got to, like, ask the brokers, hey, like, what do you think about this? How can we kind of get around it? What are the issues with it? Yep. And, like, one of the most interesting things I learned about, I know you heard, like, some of the people saying they want the inspections on your record.
Right.
So what some of them said that I thought was interesting was they don't even care about the results of the inspections. It's not for safety. They want it for
verification.
Like, like you're driving around, you're an actual truck kind of thing.
You're a carrier, right? That they don't care. They've never really got involved on the safety side of things, and they shouldn't. So they're not doing this to say we need to make sure you have a clean inspection. All they want to know is, are you a legitimate carrier? Here's the thing, though. Doesn't a relationship do that?
Yeah, that was the thing, too. It was like
right.
Almost instantly, everyone liked our story. They liked our personality. And like even the bigger brokers, they wanted to work with us.
Exactly. So when you get to meet somebody face to face, so that was another great reason to go to this event. You got to meet, like you said, 15 brokers face to face. Changes the whole dynamic. And now as you start to work with them, they know you're a legitimate carrier. They don't care whether you have that inspection or not. They know you. You've made that personal connection now. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. So,
all right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your help.
Good stuff. You're welcome. All right. It is time to turn this over to, I believe it will be Mike and Kevin today. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
I snuck up on you here.
Yeah. We snuck up on you.
You did. That's true. You
came
did.
in at the last second.
You did.
It's just the way things worked around here. We're trying to settle things with Wabash and get Mike to come in and
I don't want to come in.
I kind of felt like that this morning. I did not want to get out of bed this morning. I almost didn't. I couldn't figure out who I was supposed to call to tell him I wasn't coming into work today, though.
Yourself? Yeah.
Lisa.
Oh, I can't call Lisa and tell her I'm not coming to work. She'd never let me take a day off. Maybe Aaron. I think I could talk Aaron into giving me a day off.
There you go.
There you go. Yep. Arrange it with him. Technical difficulties. That's all right. I got to say.
All right. So I used up 4 of your minutes. I owe you 4 minutes at some point.
No, we take apparently we take jokes as currency for that.
So you guys already have calls coming in, so that's a good thing. I had to. Everybody thought they were just going to sit back and listen to me talk all day today, so I finally had to yell at them and tell them this is a call-in talk show. You got to call in once in a while.
Well,
okay.
We have things that we can say, but we're really happy to have the calls.
See, Aaron was listening and paying attention. He said I can have a day off as long as we go shooting.
Oh, okay. Well, see, is that a full day off, or do you consider that too much activity for how you felt this morning?
Well, see, that's one of those. If I take a day off and go shooting, then I need tomorrow off to recover from today's day of shooting.
Right.
Well, if you think you got it bad, wait until Will gets there.
Will?
Yeah, they keep saying fire at Will.
Yeah. Poor Will.
You don't want to be Will. Everybody firing at you. It's a wonder Will's even still around.
That's right.
Yeah.
Keeps coming back.
All right. So you guys have a call. I will let you get on with your day. I'll get out of your way here.
Thank you, buddy.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a great show. Be safe. Be profitable. Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.